Welcome to the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and we are happy today to welcome Chicago Bears tight end Daniel Brown to the show. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Did a little research about you. Saw you were a three-sport athlete in high school, and I know there's always debate, is it better to play multiple sports or is it better to just play one? What's your take on it?
I don't know. I prefer playing all three. I don't know. I just feel like it makes you a more well-rounded athlete, instead of just just one sport. Maybe I just enjoyed sports in general, so I'd rather have played all three. But I think it makes you a more well-rounded athlete.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I got two kids. They both play multiple sports, and especially with my older son, he's a quarterback and a pitcher, different motions. And I think if you just pitch all year, I think you're also more susceptible to injuries playing with just one sport all the time.
Yeah.
Let's look at your career because, your career, when I look into it, really interesting. You were a three-sport star in high school, ended up going to James Madison. Tell me a little bit about your high school career and football-wise and why you decided to migrate more towards football when it came time to pick a college.
Yeah. So I went to a really small private school in Virginia. I think it was pre-K through 12, had about 500 kids in the whole school. I think I had 44 in my whole class. So I was like a big fish in a little pond. Didn't get a whole lot of exposure at all. Didn't really have any offers. And there were some local D3 schools who said I could be a two-sport athlete, but it just wasn't in my interest to go to it was either going to be like Division I or nothing for me. I was just going to go to school.
Yeah.
And then kind of got a late start on the whole, college visits and stuff like that because I didn't really have a high school coach that helped me because I was really the only kid from that school that's ever gone to play a Division I sport. So there wasn't really a whole lot of experience there. So probably after basketball season, it was probably March when I told my dad that I wanted to still play football, and we knew we were behind. So I think he took 3 days off of work, and we put together a highlight film for football because that's what we thought we had the best chance at.
Yeah.
We sent it to all the schools in Virginia and heard back from JMU and Richmond to kind of go on a visit. They both ended up offering me just a walk-on spot. Richmond kind of felt too much like my high school, a small private school. I think there's 3,000 kids in the whole college. Didn't really want that life again. So I ended up walking on to James Madison.
All right, and the interesting thing I saw about you were named to the honor roll during all 4 years while you were in high school, too. So,
right.
So education obviously was hugely important to you also.
Yeah. My parents stayed on me hard about my grades. I think they both knew that I was smart enough to get good grades, and if I didn't, then they knew that I was being lazy or slacking. So they stayed on me pretty good about academics. And then ultimately when you pick a college, the chances of actually making it to the NFL are slim. So you need to go to school to get an education to kind of set your future. So and James Madison's a great institution for education as well.
Yeah, so when you looked at it, you were a true freshman in 2010. You redshirted, didn't play your first season. Do you think coming from a smaller school that it actually helped you to be a redshirt that first year and kind of get acclimated to everything?
Yeah, in a way. Every level is a different speed. I was, like I said, I was a big fish in a little pond in high school. There wasn't a lot of competition for me really at all. Then James Madison, it's a little different speed. So being able to redshirt kind of allowed me to get my feet wet a little bit, and then kind of hit the ground running when I got to play the next year.
Now, being a big fish in a small pond, what kind of adjustment was it to go from playing at a small high school to playing at James Madison, who was preeminently a playoff team in the FCS?
Right. Honestly, it wasn't as big of a shock as I thought it was going to be. It's still Division I, football. But I wasn't really overwhelmed at all. I kind of just, kept my head down and kept working hard, and it, naturally, I think it just kind of came to me, and I never really felt overwhelmed with the level that it was at.
Yeah, in your college career, you ended up with 91 receptions, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns in 38 games. You went undrafted in the 2015 NFL Draft. How did you end up signing with the Baltimore Ravens?
Ended up doing so after the draft, when they do all their undrafted stuff, it wasn't even an undrafted, what they call a priority free agent. Ended up getting a rookie minicamp tryout with the Ravens. So they invited me to their 3-day camp after the draft, and I ended up doing pretty well in those 3 days, and then they ended up making some room on the roster, and then they signed me to their 90-man roster a couple of days later.
Yeah, because, the rookie minicamp even, very few guys, I think, get signed from them, do they?
Right. I think we had 2 guys get signed that year.
Yeah, and then you get to training camp. So
yep.
What's the jump from James Madison to the Baltimore Ravens like?
The NFL it's a different animal. The speed of the game is so much faster. If you think about it, it's really all the best college players, on one team pretty much. But then again, I never really felt overwhelmed or like I couldn't compete at that level. When I got to practice, I made a few plays. I kind of felt like I can do this. Just kind of waited on my opportunity.
Yeah, and you get in the preseason, you did well. You got a 28-yard touchdown pass against the Philadelphia Eagles. That had to be a special memory for you.
Yeah, it was my first one. And you kind of black out. You kind of try to go back and you think about how it happened. You can't really remember it. You just kind of so much adrenaline from that feeling. But it's something I'll definitely remember forever.
All right, so what's it like? You're a guy that is, when you're in training camp, you're on the borderline of making the team. What is it like when you get to the final cuts? What are those 24, 48 hours like right before they announce it like for an NFL player?
It's nerve-wracking. You kind of just have to go through the whole camp, putting your best stuff on film and controlling what you can control. Ultimately it comes down to, numbers and, position-wise and, bubble guys. My whole focus was just put good stuff on film, and then, the rest was out of my control, whether they decided to keep me or not. And the way I kind of spent the cut weekend was just trying to keep myself busy, not to think too much into it, keep my mind busy so I'm not just sitting by the phone, waiting.
All right, so 2016, you get waived by the Ravens. The next day they picked you up, signed you as a practice squad player. And I think a lot of listeners out there, they're just regular fans, don't really know what it's like to be on the practice squad. What's a week in the life of a practice squad player like?
So it varies from team to team. But it's pretty much the same idea. You're basically, there's a 10-man practice squad, and you're basically just used, for anything that the coach needs you on practice. I know you're basically the look guy on all the special teams phases during the special teams practice. If you're an offensive guy, you're on the look squad for the defense, and then sometimes, if we're running short on bodies, if you're an offensive guy, you have to go play defense for the offensive look team. So you kind of just use however you can be used, but then again, you have to use those practice snaps as your game snaps. So you have to go full speed, so coaches can see, that's your opportunity. I know in Baltimore, I just treated every practice snap like a game rep, and then ultimately, I remember when they brought me up, they just said, we've seen you in practice, making some plays, and we think we're ready to bring you up. So you guys have to treat it like it's a game rep.
All right, and then you got released by the Ravens. You get picked up by the Chicago Bears. You get claimed off waivers. November 27th, first career touchdown in a real NFL football game. Right. Since then, you've done well with the Bears. I mean, what's your opinion of Chicago and just being with the Bears?
Sometimes change is good. I enjoyed my time in Baltimore, and then ultimately, we ended up parting ways. And, a change of scenery was kind of good. And I kind of went to a team that was, had been struggling. Maybe there wasn't as much depth in that tight end room as there was in Baltimore. So it gave me an opportunity to play, and then there were some injuries as well. But then again, it was kind of like the same situation I've always been in. Just put my best stuff on film to try to make a name for myself, and and hopefully they would, re-sign me the following year. And the rest is history.
Yeah, and the history has been great this year in Chicago. Yeah. And I would imagine the way it is around the city has to be electric with everybody excited, because I think this is the first Bears team since the mid-'80s where you actually look at it and think something special could happen for them.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a blast. Especially having been here the previous 2 years where we went, 3-13 and 5-11, and when you put together a season where you've clinched a playoff spot and you're 11-4 at the moment, and then the buzz around the city is great. I think the city, it's a winning city, and I think they just want to. I think they've been through enough. They just wanted to see good football, and when they finally have started to see good football, it just makes them really happy.
All right, so you get Coach Nagy came in this year. What was it that he did to really change the culture of this team? Because the previous years had not been great, so I would imagine something had to be done. When he came in, what was the difference?
I just think it was just, I don't know. So to me, it felt like it's just him holding everybody accountable. Like he from day one, he told us in here that he was going to change the culture, and this is what he wanted, and this is how it was going to be. And if you didn't, want to be a part of that, then you could be gone, just like that. And then he's a younger coach who's hungry. His first head coach job. I think he relates well to our team because we're one of the younger teams in the NFL. I just think he relates really well with us. He's very energetic. Just does a lot of things that gets us pumped up and rallying behind him. I think he's just a guy that you really want to play for.
Yeah, and you guys have a really good offensive line. You got Jordan Howard, who I bring up because he's from Indiana. That's where I'm from. Right. And Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. What's your take on Trubisky as the years went on?
I think he's a stud. It's tough. The kind of the position he was thrown in. His rookie year, we were struggling, offensively and even as a team, and they kind of just threw him in there. And I don't know that it was, the best situation for him. Offensively, we just struggled so much. And not to say it was any player's fault. Maybe just coaching wise, it just wasn't what fit his skill set. But I think you can see that the progress he's made in Coach Nagy's system and his coaching. He's really made a huge step from his first and second year.
Yeah, I think your coach should be the coach of the year, hands down, this year with the job he's done with you guys. Now you got a big matchup coming up with the Minnesota Vikings. Let me ask you this: there's a chance you guys could play them again next week in the playoffs. Right. Does that change how you prepare for this game?
No, Coach Nagy's message, his whole week is we're going in there to win. This isn't a game where you've clinched and you're just going to rest your starters. We're going in there to win, and hopefully, we get help from San Francisco. But if you don't get help from them, you're going in there to win, and hopefully you get the opportunity to knock Minnesota out. And I don't know, just from my opinion, I think it's tough to play, to play a team, especially in your division, 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah, especially when 2 of them are back-to-back.
Right, back-to-back weeks. So, we're going in there to win. and let the rest kind of take care of itself.
Now, you got to kind of sometimes just pinch yourself, don't you? I mean, you go from your dad taking 3 days off work in March a few years ago to try to find you a college to play in to now your mom and dad are watching you play on Sundays.
Right.
I mean,
it's surreal.
Yeah.
It's a surreal feeling when you kind of look back at it and the kind of journey it's been, and then you kind of think about it, you made it farther than really about anybody said you could. I don't think there's anybody in my high school that would have said, this far down the road that I'd be playing, for a playoff NFL team. So it's kind of, it's surreal to kind of, sit back and look at the journey.
So who do you owe that to? Who's the person that has always kept you, or was it just yourself? Or I'm sure it had something to do with your parents and the way you were raised to have that self-belief that so many people don't have.
Yeah, it was definitely my parents, especially my dad, who's probably, to this day, even since I was in college, it's a phone call probably, 2 or 3 times a week just to talk about how ball's going, And even when it's gotten rough, when things weren't, looking good, where you get cut or you get waived or you get injured, he's there to, kind of just for some support, to tell me, that I'm here for a reason. I'm in this spot for a reason. So I probably owe a lot of it to my parents, but really my dad.
All right, Daniel, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us. Hopefully we can do this a week or 2 before the Super Bowl, and you can tell me what it's like to be getting ready to play in your first Super Bowl.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, guys, remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Daniel Brown, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.